Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shore.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Hello and welcome to the latest Talking Heads podcast. I'll look back over some of the highlights from the programme over the last week. Streamlining the income tax system, possible uses for a well-known site in Port Erin, and a call for a ban on single-use carrier bags this week. But first, moves to tackle dog fouling in Douglas. Over to Stu Peters.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
Is the threat of a fixed penalty notice enough to encourage dog owners to be more responsible? Douglas Council says it'll no longer take you to court for dog fouling. You'll be issued instead with an on-the-spot fine. A new campaign's being launched to deter people from allowing their dogs to foul on the pavement without cleaning up after them. That problem, along with littering, has prompted the council to take a tougher stance. Chairman of the Environmental Services Committee, Richard McNichol, told Chris Cave some people can be inconsiderate.
The idea of taking them to court was that we would get the publicity and deter people from letting their dogs foul. But we haven't taken very many to court, so it was the committee and myself have decided that in future it will be a fixed penalty notice.
How are you going to implement this? Have you got specific people, officers as you say, watching them?
Yes, the bylaws officers, yes. And members of the public do report people as well.
But how can you have categoric evidence against somebody unless they have images or,
the posters are there as a deterrent. They're there as a deterrent. But if our officers do, and they do early morning and early evening patrols outside their normal working hours, and if they catch people, it's a fixed penalty notice.
And beforehand, were you taking people to court?
No, we did take people to court.
And how many people, do you know how many people were taken to court as a result?
Not offhand, but if they were caught, they were given the option of going to court and contesting it or paying up. And the majority of them chose to pay up. Some of them denied it and went to court, have their day in court. But I think though it costs us to go to court, so fixed penalty notices.
Are on-the-spot fines a good idea? Are they a stronger deterrent than a court prosecution? Or is catching irresponsible dog owners still the biggest challenge? Now, I've been out today along Marine Drive. Despite the number of bins along there, a number of people don't seem to clear up after their dogs. It's not exactly difficult to put a couple of bags in your pocket. There's no doubt in my mind that people who let the dogs foul should be fined heavily, and a second or third offence should be a prison term. I think prison might be a little bit strong, but I see where you're going with it. How can the issue on the spot fines to owners who don't pick up after their dogs when, in my opinion, it's happening early morning or late at night when nobody's working? Every morning, first thing, people allow their dogs to foul by the railings and North Quay between the British and Ridgeway Street. Why aren't these people looking on the CCTV? It's happening right where the cameras are, says Jim. And this is an important point. Millennium Wood dog bins, they put smaller bins there and they're overflowing. Why don't they try emptying them for a start? It's pathetic. Well, yeah, if we as a society expect people to clean up after the dogs, then we need to provide the tools to help them do that, really, don't we? And sufficiently sized and regularly emptied bins are a must, I would have thought, so I think that's a very good point. Hey boy, fixed penalty fines sound like a great idea, says Frank. Maybe our glorious Ramsey commissioners could adopt the scheme here, especially targeting those who have Dobermans who foul. Well, Doberman's a big dog, isn't it? It's more like a horse. In fact, that gives me an idea. If dog owners fed the dogs hay instead, then nobody'd mind, because obviously the horses along Douglas Promenade are fouling constantly and nobody seems to mind that. That's the answer. Feed your dogs hay. Let's go to the lines and have a word with Tommy about dog fouling. Hello, Tommy.
I mean, how are they going to implement it and police it there, Stu?
Well, the same as parking tickets, I suppose.
Well, you put that on the car. I mean, my dog can't read, Stu. What's he going to do? Is he going to stick it on the dog or something, or what?
No, they'll give it to the owner, the dog owner that's not cleaned up after it.
Well, what if the owner refuses to take it?
If it's anything like parking tickets, they'll take a photograph of the owner and they'll hand it to the police, and the fine then will get exponentially larger.
Well, you talk about evidence now, Stu. They'll have to take forensic evidence, won't they? I mean, if that person was going round, touched that person, that would be assault, wouldn't it? So, you know, they couldn't post it in their pocket or anything. And,
Oh, no, I don't suppose they'll do that. I expect it'll be just like a parking ticket.
Well, I don't think they've got any right to take a photograph of somebody, Stu, and that without their permission. Anyway, Stuart, that's just beside the point.
All right.
All it is you just need education, Stu, that's all. I mean, and we're talking about the tiniest percent of people that commit these horrible. I mean, I've just been over the park this morning, just opposite there, and we're all fantastic over there. You know,
Yeah.
I know I said it before, but if you haven't got a bag, somebody's always got a bag, and if your dog's wandering behind you, somebody just points out, you know, and says, "Tommy, Ollie's done
Yes,
through
yeah.
there." And we're all quite scrupulous about keeping the park
Smashing.
clean.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
It's only a tiny little tiny minority, Stu. But I still hate. I'm the same as anybody else who hates it. I hate it as well, Stu.
Yes.
You know, especially when you go down the glens and how beautiful the glens are, Summer Hill, and somebody lets the dog do it on the pathway. There's no excuse for that at all, Stu.
No, I agree, Tommy. All right. All owners should lift their dog muck. I think it's laziness. It's right to give an on-the-spot fine, says somebody else. Good. I think we're of a mind on that, aren't we? Stu, I disagree with the person who said about the smaller dog bins. If they're full, take your dog waste home with you. Why should the ratepayers buy bins and pay to have them emptied? Not everybody's got a dog. They've only been provided to help stop people littering, and if they're not being used properly, then take them away. Let everybody take the waste away. Always the same, if you're spoiling it for everybody else. Yes, find them a grand a time. Put the names in the paper, then see how quickly dog fouling stops. That from Andy.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Changes to the personal income tax system are likely to be on the way. In his budget speech in February, the Treasury Minister outlined plans to do away with the lower rate of taxation altogether and increase personal allowances. And now a consultation's been launched. Feedback is being sought on moves to simplify the island system, which would take more of the lower paid out of the tax net. The proposals would do away with the 10% income tax rate and see an increase of personal allowances, the amount of money that you can earn before paying any tax, from £9,500 to £14,000.
I flagged up in the budget that I would like to increase it to at least £14,000, but if our finances permitted, to increase it to £14,750. And your next question is going to be, what's the difference? If we do 14,000, there will be some people who will be worse off, although that would be a maximum of £150 a year. If we do it to 14,750, then nobody will be worse off, and there will be a lot of people who will be much better off. And it would have the advantage of taking nearly 12,000 people out of the tax net. So when I stood up on the budget, we thought it would be about 10,000 people. It's actually more than that. So that will mean that we would protect the lower paid, and additionally, it would mean that people on the minimum wage wouldn't be caught in the tax net. And from the assessor of income tax's point of view as well, it would mean less work in the office. So I think it would help the lower paid, and it would help our administration as well, so that instead of sending out bits and pieces of paper, we can concentrate on ensuring that those people who should pay do pay.
Could a simplified system be beneficial for all, or do you have reservations about the abolition of the lower rate of income tax? One comment in, nice idea, Mr. Teal. Let's see if we can screw the Manx taxpayer again and get them all to pay for our lovely big fat pensions. This from Chris in Douglas. He says, why is Eddie Tear asking for a consultation on this? Did he ask for a consultation on the swinging cuts to personal allowance credit or other matters that do affect us all, such as toilet tax, etc.? No, he didn't. He just did it. This consultation's a waste of time, and I'm sure that Treasury knows it. Well, yeah, but I mean, the thing is, Chris, you're complaining that they didn't consult on other things and now complaining when he does. So, you know, what's the right thing to do? And why would he consult on this if he didn't consult on the others? Is there a conspiracy there somewhere? I'm sure if there is, you'll let me know. Stuart sent me a quote from the document that this is all based on, the consultation document. The Minister's also asked the Assessor of Income Tax to commence work on a system that dispenses with the need to file a tax return in cases where the Income Tax Division holds sufficient information to issue an assessment straight to an individual. This measure should not only save admin costs, but also be welcomed by those who struggle to complete a return. Thank you, Stuart. And Dave says, what a bunch of moaners. I, for one, would be well happy to have my allowance go up to £14,750 a year. Bring it on. says Dave. Well, no, not many people have wanted to have a say about this, Dave. I've been quite surprised, really. So far from it. I don't think we have had a bunch of moaners on. Let's go to the lines. We've got Stephen on. Hello, Stephen.
I'm in the cynical mood on this one. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. I never think Treasury ministers bring out these new initiatives for our benefit, I'm afraid.
Okay.
There's one very good reason. Personal tax allowances are a very, very good way of introducing what's called fiscal drag. Now, Gordon Brown's government in the UK did this very successfully. It's where you keep the personal allowance at a certain level, let's say 14,000 or 14,750.
Yeah.
And you don't move it in line with the average increase in earnings. So what this means is that if Eddie Tier doesn't link this in some way to the increase in average earnings, every year more and more people will be dragged into the tax net.
I see, I understand.
And that's what Gordon Brown cynically did for many years over in the UK.
Right, so you set an allowance rate, but then you don't increase it in line with inflation and wages going up. I see.
You've got it in one.
Yeah.
And I noticed Mr. Tier said absolutely nothing about linking it to anything whatsoever.
Right. Interesting. What a good thought. Thanks for that, Stephen.
That's all right. My pleasure.
Cheers. Thank you very much for calling. Fiscal drag. Who'd have thought? I thought that was Danny LaRue going to the accountants. Having looked at the latest tax consultation, it's very short on detail. If the proposals are introduced, how will they affect the economy overall? Under the proposals, I personally would be worse off, but wouldn't complain if overall it would benefit more people. Well, that's a very reasonable way of looking at it, Roger. Simplifying the tax regime is an excellent idea, Mr. Tier, but the system needs to be progressive and fair to all. The more earned, the more the tax liability. The current tax cap is not fair to all, and in my opinion needs abolishing. I think a lot of people agree with you on that. To repeat, the personal taxation system needs to be progressive and fair to all. Fairness, you see, once some benevolent dictator, that'll be above the throne somewhere, the word fair. Stephen's just shown what a con man Eddie Tier is. That's not fair. Treasury Minister's there to try and raise as much possible money as he can for the Isle of Man, for the government to spend on public services. So, he's not a con man trying to increase the amount of money that he's taking in. Stu, you can cut the balance between the rate of the personal allowance and the rates of tax charged in an infinite number of ways, and as you said, if the juggling looks tax neutral for the individual, nobody's likely to be too offended. The embarrassment for Treasury is that while they've been screwing the Manx taxpayer to the floorboards, not increasing allowances in line with inflation, the nasty jurisdiction to our east has been increasing its personal allowances, so on paper their current 10,600 looks so much more generous than our 9,500. An increase to 14 grand or 14,750 gives Treasury a good story to spin, but as your recent caller says, what about a guaranteed increase to match inflation? All the best from John W. Thank you too. Let's go to the lines to talk about income tax, and we've got George on to have a chat about this. Hello, George.
You just mentioned something about the the allowance for the aged people.
Yeah.
I'm 82 and my wife's 81, and we live in what used to be sheltered housing, which obviously where is no longer in existence. Last April 2014, I have a little pension. I don't mind telling you, it's from the steam packet because I worked there most of my life.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I got a shock because they took £1,000 off me and £1,000 off the wife, just like that, and my tax went up 255%.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, that is scary.
I mean, it's not big figures to, the ordinary man in the street, but to a pensioner, it's...
Well, absolutely, yeah.
Particularly when in April, when you get your rise, you perhaps get between you and the wife a £5 a week, and your rent automatically goes up. I know the rents are fairly good, but it goes up £10 a week. So you're playing catch-up right away. Then along comes, the tax man. He wants a little bit, and somebody comes along, and the corporation want to put your rates up, and your taxes on your what is it they have now? This utilities.
Toilet tax and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, everything like that. It all goes up, and by the end, you're just. I mean, I'm not so bad. I'm a bit tight with my cash, but I save a few quid. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a holiday.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose the worry is, George, that it seems that nowadays everybody wants a lick of the spoon. The trouble is there's nothing on it to lick anymore because everybody's been at it.
Yeah, I think they should... I mean, I've no time for Mr. Robert Shaw, to be quite honest. He's out at MHK, and I've never seen him. I've never had any literature from him, and all the time he's been there. and I haven't got much idea for his system, but, you know, he's got some good ideas.
Yeah.
Mr. T wants to get a grip, and instead of, you know, all these little departments charging, or we'll have a bit here, as you say, a lick of the spoon, they want to get together and just hit you once, and then you wouldn't be so mind. But, you know, if somebody comes along and says, oh, I'll have that, and I'll have that, and you're trying to budget, and you know, I mean, my wife is not too good, and she's, you know, I've got a little car, and that takes a fortune to run.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, when you get up to our age, trying to get insurance.
It feels to me sometimes that it's getting to the stage, George, where the government's going to take all our income and just give us spends.
That's right, that's what we say.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for calling today. Nice talking to you. Told you, Stu, if it was the most perfect solution, the people would still moan, says Dave. Slightly unfair, I don't know.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
You're listening to the latest Talking Heads podcast featuring highlights from the programme over the past week.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Would you support a ban on single-use carrier bags? A mandatory 5p charge for the bags will be introduced in England in October. It'll apply to larger retailers who employ 250 or more staff. Scotland brought in the charge in 2014, while Wales have been charging for carrier bags since 2011. Figures show the number of single-use plastic bags handed out by UK supermarkets has increased for the fifth year, rising to 8.5 billion. But Friends of the Earth coordinator Kat Turner says the island should go further than its UK counterparts. Should it be compulsory for retailers to charge customers for carrier bags in the Isle of Man? Would you like to see them banned altogether, or are they something that you make good use of? All sorts of questions. Who's got the answers? Let's go to the lines and see if John has. Hello, John.
I mean, this business of plastic bags has rumbled on now for years.
Yes.
We got back last night after spending 5 weeks in France. There is no such thing as plastic bags.
Ah.
None whatsoever. And no problem. Now, even here, where we came back yesterday and did all our shopping in Aldi, there they charge for them. Simple as that.
Right.
But here, as soon as you get to the till, they sort of give you rip a plastic bag off the thing and put it in front of you.
Yes.
You know, it's crazy. I mean, it needs all the supermarkets. There's no use one doing it, because then they'd say, oh, we're losing business because they're going everywhere else and all. It needs every supermarket on the island to simply agree, no more plastic bags. And let's face it, people are not going to stop shopping.
No, I mean, when you say that you go to the checkout and they just virtually throw the things at you, you can always say no. I mean, it's just that...
yeah, my wife always does.
Well, but the presumption...
Her own bags. In the boot of the car, her car and my car, there is her own bags, which she takes into the supermarket.
The presumption, John, is that the majority of people who go to the supermarket don't have their own bags, and therefore they're there if you need them.
They would have to if there was no such thing as plastic bags. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's now got on the mainland that they say, do you want a bag?
Yes.
You know, and you get the choice. But here, the first thing they do before they put your stuff through, they put a plastic bag in front of you.
So in France, you've been in France for 5 weeks. What do you get? Just paper bags and things instead, or boxes, or how do they do it there?
Well, nothing. People have to take their own in and load it, or they just simply put it all back in their trolley and take it out to the car.
Right, okay.
But there's no such thing as plastic bags.
No carrier bags in France. Okay, John, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much indeed. I expect it to probably take a week for us all to get used to the idea that we're not going to be given plastic bags at the checkout, but it's an easy enough thing to solve, I would have thought, isn't it? Fair enough, but what's the alternative, says one of our contributors. Paper bags, boxes? How am I going to get my shopping home on the bus? I won't buy a reusable one because they're plastic too. I guess that the alternative is that you use, a proper sort of a fabric bag, a cloth bag. My bags are used twice if possible and then they become bin liners, says Bob. I think that most people are like that, yeah. Robin Peel called. A lot of the charities sell canvas bags. They last a long time. It's worth a couple of pounds to a charity to buy one because you get something that lasts. Yeah, I mean, I've talked to Kat Turner and other people about this in the past. Trouble is, I'm just not properly organised about this. I've got 3 or 4 of those Moores bags that I've been given over the years, and they're always in the kitchen when I'm at the supermarket. Stu, I'm getting sick of people with all good intentions telling me what I should and shouldn't be doing. If I spend a small fortune on food for my family, then any cost incurred for bags should be down to the shop to cover, not me, says Pete. OK, Stu, this would be like taxing sugary foods. People would still use the same amount but pay for the privilege. Taxing random stuff doesn't work, says Dave. Thank you, Dave. We've got Jill on to talk about this. Hello, Jill.
It's not the plastic bags that are the problem.
Oh.
It's the people who use them.
Ah.
They don't have to throw them down. They could take them home or they could put them in a nearby litter bin.
So it's people not disposing of them properly that's the problem?
Oh, yeah. My husband goes litter picking along the beaches. And, I mean, the plastic bags that he finds down there, it's unbelievable.
OK. I mean, I think that the campaigners are saying that they're not terribly biodegradable either. And, yes, there's the littering problem, but the bags themselves are a problem. They don't biodegrade. You know, they use a lot of resources and stuff. So I think it's more than just the litter problem.
I can appreciate that. But, I mean, as somebody has already said, you can use them as bin liners and
all
then
sorts,
put them in the dustbin.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, Jill. So, yes, good point. Northern Ireland charge for all bags, whatever you buy. This is a no-brainer, says somebody else. The Republic of Ireland went back to paper bags 12 or 14 years ago, and it's been successful. No trees full of them, says Joe. What's the cost in terms of resources and money for bag production? How many people do the manufacturers employ, says Dave? That's a thought, I suppose. I use single-use bags as bin liners, says Ros. If I have to buy proper bin liners, they're not biodegradable and use more resources to produce. Right, OK. Back to the lines, and let's talk to Jeff. Hello, Jeff.
Quick comment. I heard somebody say if you pay for bags, people will pay for them. Well, just to give you some figures, I just did a bit of research on the internet, and in Scotland last year, when they introduced a 5p tax on bags, they reduced the numbers used by 80%, which in real terms was 147 million bags.
Yes.
Now, I think the pollution thing tends to overtake the issue. I'm not an environmentalist by any stretch of the imagination, but I think 147 million bags in a country of 4.5 million people.
It's a worthwhile...
multiply that by 70 million in the UK.
Yeah.
That's an awful lot of bags, and obviously raw materials has to be used to make those bags.
Sure.
So I don't get carried away on because I use my bags like you. I bin line them and put them in the bin and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But 147 million bags in a population of 4.5 million people.
Yeah, it's got to be worthwhile by the sound of it.
Well,
certainly.
that's a lot of bags. I'll let the economists work out about how much money that will save in job losses and things like that. But this is just the issue about how many bags there are.
Good stuff. All right, Jeff. Well, that's good. Statistics on the programme. There's a first.
Well, you know what statistics are like, too.
Lovely. Thank you very much for calling today. Hi, Stu. What's with the free plastic bags? We pay for them. The supermarkets adjust the prices of their products they sell to take into account the so-called giveaways. So would Ms Turner prefer paper bin bags, paper pedal bin liners, better still, paper nappies? Then we won't be using oil to produce anything. The world is paved with good intentions. No, I think it's the road to hell, isn't it? As we know, and if a tax is put on plastic bags, it'll all go to the government. Minister Tier will be rubbing his hands with glee, says Smee. Maybe the answer is for shops not to have carry bags at all, then people would have to take their own with them. What hardship would that be, says Jan? Well, for the shops, it'd be an awful lot of people who got to the checkout and realised that they weren't going to be able to get the stuff home. But like I said earlier on, it would probably only take a week or so before people got the hang of it. Stu, instead of taxing the public again, easy option, they should go after manufacturers, food packaging, etc. Could be a fifth of the size. Also, they're taxing them across because they're going to landfill. No problem over here. Everything's incinerated, says John. OK. Hello, Stu. No. An over-the-top do-gooding proposal, completely disproportionate for our island. It's education which is needed, says John W. About plastic bags. OK, then.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Do patients expect to be prescribed antibiotics when they visit the doctor? The medicine's watchdog across the water, NICE, says GPs should be disciplined if they prescribe antibiotics to those who don't need them. I would agree with that. The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence Centre for Clinical Practice, That's not nice. That's nice. Says that some doctors in England and Wales are a soft touch and give in to pressure from patients. Some infections have become resistant to antibiotics because of overprescribing. Professor Mark Baker is from NICE.
So there's a lot of work that needs to be done working with the professions and with organisations that deliver healthcare to improve prescribing practice and prolong the life of antimicrobial drugs. Next year we'll be producing guidance on advice to the public to try and eradicate this mentality that exists in some sections of the population that all infections can benefit from antibiotics when that is plainly not the case.
Do you think that doctors prescribe antibiotics too frequently? Is it down to patients who become too expectant over receiving them? What do we think about it? Let's go to the lines and have a word with Howard. Hello, Howard.
No, just listen to that and reading about it. I totally agree there are far too many handed out, but part of the problem is probably self-diagnosis with Googling. People, there's some people take a week off with a broken flask. They go to Google, the imaginary disease, and they pick out the worst they can. And they go and tell the doctor. But we're a little bit lucky here because we don't have the, no win, no fee.
Yes, and lawyers,
I think a lot of the doctors are fearful of litigation.
You might be right. Yeah.
It's easier to hand out a box of pills than fight the lawyers.
Yeah, could be.
And people are going in, wrongly self-diagnosis, and the doctors, again, are heart scared, and it's easier to hand out. If they're handing out placebos, then they could do something, and these people will go away happy.
Yes.
But if you're going to self-diagnose, you've got to take the advice of the doctor when you go there if you're wrong.
I suppose
a lot of people are not.
That's the problem with social media and with the internet these days. You're right, of course. I mean, I use Dr. Google more than I use my GP. And I've come to a system now, which is that I'll have a look at the symptoms on via Google, find out that it's terminal and I've got a week to live. And if I last for 10 days and it's still sore, I go and see my GP.
But the other thing is, too, the people that's using a majority of these antibiotics, again, the bacteria are changing, and indirectly that's going to affect, say, like you and I, who don't go to the doctors.
Yes.
Because if we do get something, then that particular bug
is probably a resistant strain by the time we get it.
And unknown, they are changing the path of the bacteria, and it's going to affect everybody.
It's very true that, yeah. I'm going to stop going and seeing my GP, I've decided, because every time I go, it doesn't matter what he says. I've got, a ringing in my ears, doctor. Oh, lifestyle changes. You need to lose weight and do more exercise. I've got a bit of a cough, doctor. Lifestyle changes. You need to lose weight and do a bit more exercise. I'm not going to go anymore.
I won't mention any names, but my doctor, and I didn't actually see this, but I believe he had a notice on his door. If you don't like what I say, don't come in.
Oh, well, that's reasonable. Yeah, quite like that. Good stuff. All right, thank you for calling, Howard. Always good to hear from Howard. Let's go to line 4. We've got our pal Tommy on. Hi, Tom.
I mean, I feel sorry for the GPs on the whole, Stu, because they get people going in the surgeries, haranguing, and it's impossible for the GPs at a diagnosis to diagnose between a viral and a bacterial infection.
Right.
And sometimes they're getting yapped at. I suppose you can't blame them really for prescribing them just to get them out of the way, Stu,
Well, no, I do blame them. If they're prescribing because it's the easy option, then I don't think they're doing the job that we're paying them for.
Well, they shouldn't do, Stu.
All right, fair dues, Tommy. Thank you very much for your call.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
What should be done with the former marine biological laboratory site in Port Erin? There's interest in developing the site, according to the Department of Economic Development. It's received 4 expressions of interest. Should any development on the site pay homage to its previous use, or does it make little difference what it's developed into as long as something's done with it? Let's go to the lines and talk to Terry about the Marine Biological Station at Port Erin. Hello, Terry.
I think it would turn out great as a training and holiday centre, or holiday and training centre for skin divers, with a section of it done as a centre for complex, centre of the complex as a specialist restaurant doing seafoods.
Okay, yeah. And do you think that the diving centre would attract enough trade? Do you think there are enough people who want to do it?
I think so, because our waters are well known for their clearness and the interest, because you've got pretty general diving with wrecks and beautiful underwater caving and all that sort of thing. It's very interesting.
Okay, so that and a specialist seafood restaurant.
Yes, because you've got your seaweed things on menus these days as well.
Yeah.
Which attracts people, to something different.
Okay.
And could even have a taste of continental about it,
I think that what you're saying makes sense. The only worry that I've got is whether or not there'd be enough people who would want to do it to make it financially viable. That's the thing. We don't want something there that's going to cost the taxpayer a lot of money to keep going, do we?
Oh, absolutely not. No, we've got enough taxes to pay.
Well,
but, no, I think it would cotton on very well, because you get people coming over and they sort of stay at different areas in the island, but the accommodation for them is the thing that's poor.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Terry. Thank you very much. That was Terry from his cave in Colby, by the sound of it. If you ever do phone the programme, just turn your radio down if you've got it on in the background, because it sets up a sort of a feedback loop and you get that horrible echo. The Isle of Man must push its natural assets for tourism and related, says Peter. That means hills, forests, etc., and of course the coast and sea. The Marine Biological Station should remain marine related, i.e. research station, sea life visitor centre. Allowing it to be a private dwelling or a hotel will make yet another stretch of coast a dead area, i.e. no reason to visit unless you're staying there. That from Peter. Let's go to the lines and see what Gillian would do. Hello, Gillian.
I would put a sea life centre there.
Okay.
Something for the locals to see, and also visitors, another attraction.
So sort of an aquatic centre, a zoo for sea creatures.
For sea creatures, yes, live sea creatures.
Right, okay. And would it be relatively cheap to do that? Because one presumes it'd have to be a private company that did it. So
I think it would be, because there's one in Weston-super-Mare, there's one in a lot of other places. I think it would work.
All probably got a far bigger catchment area though than the Isle of Man would have.
Well, I don't know. We get a lot of visitors coming over. I think there are more coming over now than there used to be.
All right, Gillian, so a marine centre, a sea life sort of a centre, do you think that would make money? Stu, I think best use for now redundant Marine Biological Centre in Port Erin would be a sea life centre. After all, they're close to the sea, so pumping and circulating the seawater wouldn't be a problem, or perhaps a water sport and diving school. All I say is let's not leave another building to go to rack and ruin and rot from the inside out, says Pip. Robin Peel says it could be turned into some sort of museum with a platform at the top so people can look out to sea during the day and up at the stars at night. It could let people who visit the island know about the sea life around the island, the history of the lifeboats and the fishing fleet. I suppose that our existing museums do an amount of that. House of Manannan, do they not do? It's a long time since I've been there, but do they not do something about the fishing history of the island? Derek called, I still can't understand, and neither can a lot of people in the area, why the Sea Breezes application was turned down. There couldn't have been a better company to carry out the development and to create the things that Lawrence Skelly is now saying he wants to see there. I don't think we ever found out what went wrong, and we should. How about turning it into a post office, says David H. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. We've got Ali, who's on the lines. Hello, Ali.
Yeah, what I'd like to see is a group of people using it, because it's a large building, and leave it as like a marine centre. You know, people who sort of yacht club, jet skiers, boat trips, all that sort of thing. I mean, you know, if they shared it, it may be viable.
Yeah, okay.
Because we've got a fabulous bay, you know, we've got, it, you know, just lends itself to something to do with, you know...
A multi-aquatic pursuit centre.
I think it would be ideal, because they could have changing rooms and places, because we have there's an awful lot of people dive off that area.
Okay.
They might be, if there was a diving club, you know, they could use it for storing the gear and that sort of thing, instead of having to bring it in the back of the car every time they come down.
Yeah.
I think a group of people could use it, and, you know, hopefully it would, anything but development, to be honest, because it lends itself to a marine activity.
Anything rather than flats. All right, Ali, thank you very much for your call. Derek called. People seem to be talking about it as if it had never been a sea-based centre, talking about the Marine Biological Centre at Peel. It always was, all of my lifetime. There used to be a mass of students who stayed in the south all summer, which put money into the economy. I can see no reason why it couldn't go back to being an educational facility. Well, it used to be linked up with the University of Liverpool, I think, didn't it? Maybe they pulled out. I don't know what the story is to that, but you can't insist that somebody stays there if they want out of it. High Stew, Simple Economics, a sea life centre based on 6 staff and running costs would cost in the region of about 10 grand per week. Say you charge a ticket price of an average of £10 per person, you'd need 1,000 visitors 52 weeks of the year to break even. People on the island need to realise that there's only 3 to 4 weeks a year that we get good visitor numbers. The rest of the time, the attractions rely on the locals, says Malcolm. Do you know, Malcolm, that is exactly the way that I look at these things. You know, people say, oh, we should do this, we should do that, we could do this, we could do that. If it's down to economics and not down to the taxpayer funding things that are going to lose money, then you have to remember that we just don't have the catchment area of millions of people in the big towns and cities who can pop over here for the weekend, drive up the motorway at the weekend and use these sort of facilities. That's the problem.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
That's it for the latest look back at Talking Heads. As ever, thanks to everyone who took part in the programme. If you want to have your say, you can call, text or email between midday and 2 p.m. on weekdays. Or you can join in the debate on the Facebook page, Talking Heads with Stu Peters. You can access each day's programme in full using the on-demand section of manxradio.com, and you'll also get a daily update of what's up for discussion each day on the programme on the website too. You can also keep up to date with that information by liking the Facebook page or following Stu Manx on Twitter. And if you'd like to suggest a topic for discussion, get it to us by emailing talk@manxradio.com, and you can do that anytime. But that's it for now, so until next time, goodbye.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin or click shaw.com. Love being Shaw. Terms and conditions apply.